Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful shirt. So the very first thing I did as usual is to place my fabric on fold. For my back fabric, I placed it on fold and it is a length of 30 inches, and my width on fold for the back is about 13.5 inches. So you're going to use the biggest part of your body measurement, which is my hip, and I added few inches. Then for my front is 27 inches in length and the width is 13.5 inches with extra 2.5 inches, which is for the button overlap allowance. So that means the length of my front is shorter than my back, but my front is wider than my back because of the button overlap. And let's have it in mind that this shirt is a free shirt. It's not fitted. It's kind of loose on the body. You see it when we're done with it. So I'm just trying to place my fabric so that it aligns, making sure that I mark my button allowance so that it is quite visible. That's it that I'm marking with my blue chalk. So I decided to place it on this side so you can see it better. So now my shoulder slope is 2 inches, so I'm just going to be ruling out my shoulder slope and I'm going to be cutting it out. Remember that our back is longer than the front, but I make sure they align at the top here. You're going to see what it looks like on the bottom part, but first I make sure it aligns before I cut my shoulder slope. So this is what we have after cutting my shoulder slope. You can see what it looks like on the bottom. The back is longer than the front. So what I'm just going to be doing now is pulling the front piece so that it aligns with the back piece at the bottom. So now there is a gap at the front. I hope you get what I'm doing now. So if you see the bottom piece parts now, they are aligned. So what I'm going to be doing next is folding over that excess on the back. So I'm going to be placing it and folding it over the front piece. I'm going to be folding it over it with 0.5 inches. That's still the joining allowance. So I'll just act as if I have joined it. Meanwhile, I just pinned it. This is to enable me to cut out my neckline and my armhole. So the next thing I'm going to do is extend that's my button overlap. Then I'm going to be marking my shoulder measurements divided by 2 plus ½ inch for seam allowance. I'm going to be marking down my armhole depth, which is 8.5 inches. Then you know the usual routine. I'm just going to make that into a straight line. Then I'm going to be marking my bust measurement divided by 4, sorry. So it is 10 inches for my client. I'm going to be adding 1 inch allowance for ease and ½ inch for seam allowance. So I have a total of 11.5 on my bust. And note that my measurements started from that line that I ruled for my button allowance, not from the edge of the front piece. Then for my waistline, I'm marking 16 inches and I'm going to be dividing my waist measurement by 4, adding 1 inch of ease and ½ inch for seam allowance. And also at the bottom part of this shirt, I'm going to be marking my hip measurement, which is 11 inches plus 1 inch of ease and ½ inch for seam allowance. So the next thing I have to do is connect all of these points together with my straight ruler. At this point, you can decide to curve the side of your shirt if you want it curved. I thought I wanted a straight sided shirt before, but I later on curved it in the course of the video. But at this point, you can decide to curve it so you don't have that sharp edge at the sides. So I'm sorry the frame of my video changed here, but all I'm just doing here is marking my armhole curve as per usual. So I'm just marking my armhole curve with my curved ruler, and I'm cutting out my armhole. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so you get to watch other videos like this. Thank you. So after cutting up my armhole, I'm going to be notching that edge at the top, and that will be my midpoint, not the joining part. You see what I'm saying later in the course of the video. So after cutting my armhole, I'm also going to be cutting out the leftover at the side. So I already said this is the part where you can shape the sides of your shirt if you want it slightly curved. I didn't do it here, I did it later on in the video, but you can actually do it now. So you can also decide to reshape your front armhole. I also did that later in the video. Then I also notched my button overlap allowance here so I don't get confused. So now moving on to the neckline, I'm going to be marking 3 inches for the depth of my neckline, and I'm going to be marking 2.5 inches for the width of it. So that's me marking 3 inches for the depth and 2.5 inches for the width. So please note, I'm making a curve. Then I'm going to be cutting the back neckline first. So just watch how I cut my back neckline. I'm trying to make a curve there so that that part is not so sharp. Just watch what I do. So I'm cutting only the back, as you can see. Please don't make this mistake of cutting the front and the back together. You're going to be cutting only the back. Then I'll be lifting the front part, and I'm going to be cutting out the neckline as well. So this is just a basic neckline. I might need to retrim my neckline later on in the video if need be. This is just a basic one because your neckline should not be too wide. If it's still too tiny, you can still retrim it to make it bigger, but if it's too wide, I guess there's nothing you can do about it. So this is what we have now. I have my button overlapped. I'm just removing my pins here that I have already notched. I have my front piece ready, I have my back piece ready, and that's it. So that's me just showing you my front piece. So what I'll go ahead and do now is iron my interfacing, and I'm using a soft hair stay for this. So what I did was just to fold my button overlap by 1/2 inch, then 1 inch. So this is what I have after I stitched it down. This is what the front looks like. So I'm going to be placing the front on the back, right sides facing each other, and I'm going to be joining that shoulder part. But please know that this shoulder part is not going to be our mid shoulder. It is that part that I notched earlier that is going to be our mid shoulder. You can see me aligning it with the armhole. So now I'm going to move on to retrimming my front armhole. Remember I said it earlier that you should retrim your front armhole. So at the midpoint, I'm just coming in by 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to be doing this with my free hand. So please note that I'm trimming only the front part, not the back, please, just the front part. I'm going to do this also to the other side. This is just to ensure that I don't have any bulk at the armhole area. So this is what we have now. So I'm going to be marking what I have on my armhole. I'm going to be marking total of what I have on my arm, and I have about 23 inches. So this is what I'm going to be using to cut out my sleeve. So I folded my sleeve into 2, and I'm cutting both sleeves together. So that is my starting point. From my starting point, I'm coming down by 4.5 inch, which will be my cap height. The width of my sleeve unfold is about 11 inches, and when I draw my curve, I'm going to measure it to make sure that I have half of that 23 inches that I measured earlier on my shirt armhole. Then the length of my sleeve is 10 inches plus 1.5 inch for the folding allowance at the hem and ½ inch to join at the top. That makes it a total of 12 inches, and that is what I am marking and ruling out. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is marking the width of my sleeve at that 10 inches point. So I came up by 1.5 inch because I don't want to be marking on my seam hemming allowance. So there I'm going to be marking my width divided by 2 inches plus my joining my seam allowance, sorry. So I'm connecting it back to the point I marked at the cap's height, and I'm going to be folding in my hemming allowance in order to cut my sleeve. This will ensure that I don't have any shortage when I'm hemming my sleeve. So my scissors is quite blunt, that's why I'm struggling with it here. So I'm just cutting out everything that I've marked earlier, and I'm going to be notching the center point of my sleeve. So now that I'm done cutting, I'm going to be trimming off that part that I don't need, and we have my sleeve now. I'm also notching the bottom part, and this is my sleeve now. So what I'm going to be doing is matching the top part of my sleeve with the notch that I made earlier. I'm not going to be matching it with my shoulder joining, please. I'm matching it with that notch that I made earlier at the shoulder on the shirt, and I'm going to be joining my seams together. So at the hem part, I folded ½ of an inch and I folded 1 inch, and I'm going to be stitching that down as the hemming allowance for my sleeve. So now I'm done stitching my sleeve, and the next thing to do is join my shirt with 0.5 inch allowance that I left, and this is what we have now. So you can, if you notice, the shoulder joining doesn't fall on the shoulder exactly, it kind of falls forward. Yeah, that's how it should be in a basic shirt. So the next thing I'm going to be working on now is the neckline. I'm going to be measuring what I have on this neckline. It was quite small, so I decided to trim it out a bit, just a little bit, to fit my client. So this is me just trimming it out just a little bit. So I'm going to be marking what I have now, and I have 9.25 inches on fold. So this is what I'll use to draft my collar. So the first thing I'll be drafting is my collar stand, and I'm marking a straight line, measuring my 9.25 because this collar stand will be on fold. 9.25. Then I'm going to be marking my back neckline, and I have 4.5. So it is from this 4.5 that the curve of my collar stand will start. So I'm just basically marking a rectangle at this point. The height of my collar stand is 1.25 inches, and the length is 9.25 like we measured earlier. So I'm just coming up from that 4.5 point. I'm coming up at this edge by 0.25 inches, and I'm just marking a slight curve there to join the front part. So I'm going to be checking what I have to make sure that I still have my 9.25 inches. Then I'm going to be coming in by 1 inch, and I'll be making my curve at the front part, just a slight curve, so my collar stand is not just, doesn't have that sharp edge. So, and that's that about that. I'm just going to be cutting it out. So if you have not subscribed to my channel, this would be a good time to subscribe so you get more videos like this. So this is my collar stand, and that part that I'm labeling will be on fold. So moving on to cutting the main collar now. My collar will be 1 inch shorter than my collar stand in length. So instead of 9.25 inches, my collar will be 8.25 inches. So and the height will be 1.5 inches. So I'm just basically marking a rectangle of 1.5 by 8.25 inches. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is coming out by 0.5 inch, and I'm going to be connecting it to the bottom. Now I'm going to be raising this part a bit and connecting it back to the top. Just watch the video and you get what I'm saying. So I'm just going to be covering that bottom part just a little. I'm coming up by 0.5 inch, 0.25. I'm just covering it just a little, and that's that. We're done with the collar. Very simple. So this collar will also be cut on fold. So we're basically done with drafting the collar. So what I will do is use this pattern to cut my interfacing for my collar, and also cut my main fabric for the collar and the collar stand. So that's the part that will be on fold, and this is the collar stand as well. So here I am. I use the pattern to cut my interfacing, then I use the same pattern to cut my main fabric, adding about 0.375 inches for seam allowance. So I'm going to be working with the main collar first, and I'm placing it on another fabric. So this fabric is what I'll use to turn my collar. I only cut one piece for each collar and the collar stand because this is how it works for me. I didn't cut two. So I'm just going to place in a random fabric on top of them, front sides facing each other, to turn them. So this is what works for me. Please do what works for you. So after I've trimmed everything out, after joining, this is what I have, and I'll go ahead and turn it out properly so that I have my sharp edge of my collar. And I'm going to be top stitching around the parts that I sewed on this collar. I'm also going to be pressing it down with my sewing iron so that I have a clean finish. So this is it. I'm done top stitching and ironing it properly. So I'm going to be folding it into two now in order to get my center point on this collar. I'm going to be doing the same thing for my collar stand. I'm folding it into two and notching the center point. So I'm going to be placing my collar stand on top of my collar now, front sides facing each other. I'm making sure that the curved part is facing me like this. Can you see the curved part of the edge of the collar stand? Then I'm going to be stitching it down, and this is what I have. So I'll be placing it on another fabric now, making sure that the collar stand, the right side of the collar stand, is facing the right side of this new fabric that I just placed. I'm going to be stitching on that same line that I stitched to join the collar stand to the collar, if you get what I'm saying. So I'm just trimming out all of my excess at this point. Please, you need to trim out all of your bulky excess. You don't need the excess in your collar, so that your collar will lay very flat. And after I'm done trimming, this is what I have. I'm going to be giving it a good press. Then I'm going to be joining it to my neckline. So I already left out my joining allowance of about 0.25 inches. So I folded it in when ironing my collar stand, and this is what we have now, as you can see. So I'm going to be placing my collar against the neckline of my fabric, right sides facing each other, right sides facing each other, as you can see. And I'm going to be stitching down first the parts with the interfacing. So after stitching down the part with the interfacing, the part without the interfacing is what I'm going to be used to cover up my seam, and that's what I'm trying to show you here. I'm going to use it, make sure I use it to cover up my seam, and I'm going to stitch it down. And this is what we have when I am done stitching. It's all neat and clean on the inside and on the outside. So our shirt is almost ready. So now what I decided to do is curve that the side part of my shirt. I actually wanted to leave it straight before and put like and attach a drawstring, but I changed my mind last minute and just decided to curve it and make it just a basic shirt. So this is me just coming up by 2 inches and curving it slightly. So after curving it, I'm going to be folding the down part twice and hemming it with my hemming allowance. And I did my buttonhole and I stitched my button, and voila, this is what we have. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a like, share it, and please subscribe to my channel. So this is what we have. I also have a tutorial on the pattern of this pants. Thank you so much. Bye.